Hollywood, California. This is a place where dreams come true, but at the same time, the deepest nightmares are hidden here. Hollywood is a city where shiny storefronts hide dark secrets, and stories of success intertwine with stories of brutality and crime. A group of friends from different cities in the USA. These are 5 young people who have long dreamed of visiting Hollywood and experiencing the atmosphere of the world film industry. Each of them has their own dream to become an actor, director, screenwriter, or simply to see the places where their favorite films were shot. A group of friends decide to spend a week in Hollywood, renting a fancy house in the hills with a stunning view of the city. They plan to visit famous places, meet celebrities, and just have a good time. At first, their trip looks like a dream come true. They enjoy nightclubs, visit film sets, and meet people who work in the film industry. But already on the third day, something unusual happens. One of the friends, Andy, notices that someone is constantly following them. At first, it seems like a coincidence, but when they see the same black car several times near their house and in different places in the city, it becomes clear that it is not a coincidence. In the evening of the same day, Andy finds that his phone is behaving strangely. All the contacts are gone, and the screen shows only a black background. Other friends begin to notice strange things. Doors in the house sometimes open and close by themselves. Objects disappear and reappear in other places. Their vacation begins to turn into a nightmare when one of their friends, Lisa, disappears during a night out. The police, who are called to the scene, find no signs of violence or any signs of her presence at all. The group of friends begins to realize that they are involved in something much more serious than they could have imagined. Their Hollywood dream turns into a dark nightmare when they realize that their actions are being watched and controlled by forces they cannot explain. The group of friends who came to Hollywood has already lost one of their members, Lisa. Her mysterious disappearance creates fear and uncertainty among those who remain. What at first looked like a dream come true now turns into a game of survival. After Lisa's disappearance, the group decides not to wait for help from the police, who seem disinterested in their case. They begin their own investigation, trying to find any clues that might lead them to her. Andy, being the most logical and reasonable among them, takes on the role of leader. He gathers his friends, and together they begin to analyze what could have happened on the night of the disappearance. They review surveillance footage of the area where Lisa was last seen and discover that the black car that had been following them in the early days was spotted nearby. Andy guesses that this could be a key piece of evidence and starts looking for information about this car using his technical knowledge. The more they learn, the more they realize that Lisa's disappearance is just part of something bigger. Other friends begin to notice that their phones are behaving strangely. Contacts disappear, unknown messages appear, and the battery drains in a matter of minutes, as if someone is playing with them. During one of the nights, when the friends are discussing their plans, they notice that one of them, Sarah, also begins to act strangely. She becomes withdrawn and paranoid, claiming to hear voices telling her to leave Hollywood. She is convinced that they are being pursued not only by people, but by something supernatural. The situation worsens when they find a secret passage in the rented house leading to the basement. In the basement, they find old newspapers, photographs, and documents indicating that their house was once the scene of brutal crimes associated with a secret cult that operated in Hollywood in the 1950s. It turns out that this cult was involved in the mysterious disappearances and deaths of several young people who were trying to succeed in the film industry. The discovered material forces the friends to rethink everything they knew about Hollywood. They begin to suspect that their presence here was not accidental, and that someone deliberately lured them to this house. They start to investigate the history of the cult, trying to understand if Lisa's disappearance is connected to these events. Meanwhile, tension among the friends grows. They become increasingly suspicious of each other, not knowing who to trust. Each of them begins to notice strange things happening to them personally, which heightens their fears. After discovering the secret passage in the house and the materials related to the dark cult, the friends realize that the situation is much more serious than they could have imagined. Their vacation in Hollywood has turned into a terrifying adventure where every step could be fatal. Andy and the rest of the friends begin to delve into the history of a cult that, according to them, was active in Hollywood in the 1950s. This cult engaged in occult practices and, as it turned out, used young people as victims for their rituals. The cult members were closely linked to the film industry and used their influence to cover up their crimes. The photographs and documents found in the basement make it clear that the cult may still be active, just under a different guise. The friends begin to suspect that the cult is the reason for Lisa's disappearance. They also find references to some sort of purification rite that was supposed to take place in the coming days, prompting them to act quickly. Sarah, who was already on the verge of a nervous breakdown, again hears voices telling her to leave town. She becomes even more withdrawn and paranoid, which worries the rest of the friends. They begin to suspect that she may have been influenced by the cult, or even somehow connected to it. Meanwhile, Andy and the others try to get to the roots of the cult, tracing the connections between old members and modern influential people in Hollywood. They discover that several famous producers and directors were connected to this cult, and now their actions are controlled by shadowy figures who intend to keep their secrets at all costs. When the friends try to contact the police, they encounter resistance from the local authorities. It becomes clear to them that even the police may be involved in the conspiracy. This forces them to rely only on themselves. Andy decides to use the evidence he finds to expose the cult. He plans to arrange a meeting with some influential people involved in the cult under the pretense that he has information that can expose them. But he does not suspect that the cult also knows about their actions and is preparing for this confrontation. The night is approaching when the decisive meeting is to take place. Andy prepares for it, knowing that this could be the most dangerous moment of his life. The friends gather together to support him, but at that moment, Sarah disappears. Finding out where Sarah has gone becomes a new challenge for the group. They suspect that she could be another victim of the cult, or even bait to lure them into a trap. The night is approaching when Andy and his friends must meet with the cult's representatives to try to expose their crimes. They know it could be a trap, but they have no other choice. They understand that this conflict must be resolved tonight. Sarah is gone, and that only adds to the tension. The others suspect that she was kidnapped by the cultists to use as a sacrifice for their rituals. Andy, Megan, Jack, and Tony decide to split up. One group will go to meet with the cult, while the other will try to find Sarah, risking their own lives. Andy, Megan, and Jack go to the meeting, which is to take place in an old, abandoned church that was once the site of cult rituals. They enter inside, where they are met by the cult leader, a person they knew as a respected resident of the town. He appears calm and confident that the situation is under his control. The church is dark, with traces of old rituals on the walls. Andy and his friends realize that their opponents are well prepared, and any mistake could lead to fatal consequences. The cult leader tries to convince them that all their actions were for the good of the town, that all these sacrifices had a purpose, but Andy does not fall for his manipulations. The situation quickly escalates when Andy challenges the cult leader to an open confrontation. This becomes not only a physical confrontation, but also a moral one. Andy challenges the leader, asserting that all their actions are just a cover for boundless cruelty and lust for power. He promises to expose all their secrets, and even if he dies tonight, the truth will still come to light. The cult leader tries to use his followers to intimidate Andy and his friends, but they remain determined to fight to the end. Megan finds a way to distract the cultists, giving Andy and Jack the opportunity to attack the leader. Meanwhile, Tony, who stayed behind to search for Sarah, finds her in one of the underground passages leading under the church. She was bound and prepared for a ritual. Tony unties her, but they are pursued by cultists who also know about his presence. They understand that time is running out, and they must act quickly to avoid capture or even death. The fight in the church reaches its peak. Andy realizes that they will not be able to get out without losses, but they decide to fight to the end. When the situation seems hopeless, Megan finds hidden weapons that give them a temporary advantage. At this moment, Tony and Sarah break into the church, where they help finish the fight against the cultists. However, the leader manages to escape, leaving open the question of whether the evil was truly defeated. After the brutal battle with the cultists in the abandoned church, Andy and his friends realize that their struggle has only just begun. Although they managed to defeat the cult leader, they were unable to capture him. However, they have gathered enough evidence to expose the cult's activities and bring the authorities into the investigation. The next day, as Hollywood awakens from the night of horrors, news of the secret cult's activities connected to the film industry begins to spread across the country. The investigation, which began with a group of young friends, leads to the exposure of dozens of crimes, including disappearances and murders that had remained unsolved for many years. The police, under pressure from the public and the media, are forced to act. Many influential figures connected to the cult begin to lose their positions, and some even find themselves under arrest. The town, which they once saw as a place of dreams, now becomes a stage for justice. Despite their success, Andy and his friends feel no real joy. They lost Lisa, who never returned. Her body was found in one of the basements under the church. She had become a victim of a ritual meant to protect the cultists from exposure. This loss leaves a deep scar on their hearts. Sarah, who survived a terrifying ordeal, begins to gradually recover from the shock. But she decides to return home and start a new life, far from the memories of Hollywood. The other friends also realize that they need to heal and find the strength to continue their lives. The final scenes depict Andy packing his things into the car, preparing to leave the city that can no longer be his home. He looks back at Hollywood, which now appears different, not as a place where dreams come true, but as a city with a dark history that he helped to uncover. The friends decide to part ways, each choosing their own path, but they remain in touch, knowing that this experience has changed their lives forever. As Andy drives away from Hollywood, he understands that a new beginning awaits him. He knows he cannot forget what he has been through, but now he is stronger and wiser. He leaves the city with the feeling that his mission is complete, but the memories of battling the shadows of the past will stay with him forever. The city returns to life, but its residents now know that every secret, no matter how deep, eventually comes to light. Hollywood remains a place where dreams can come true, but its light will never be as bright as before.